Today we are going to be talking about Bloom syndrome. The topics we will be covering are the following. What is Bloom syndrome? What causes Bloom syndrome? How would someone inherit Bloom syndrome? And is there a way to cure Bloom syndrome?
Bloom syndrome is a fatal genetic disease in which both parents transfer Bloom syndrome mutation to their children. In this video, you will learn about Bloom syndrome and how it affects the child.
Causes. What is the gene that is affected in the disease? Mutations in the BLM gene cause Bloom syndrome. The BLM gene provides instructions for making a member of a protein family, which is helicase. Helicases are enzymes that attach to a DNA and unwind the two spiral strands double helix of the DNA molecule. What type of mutation causes the disease? Missense, nonsense, and frameshift mutations have all occurred in the study of Bloom syndrome. What chromosome is BLM in? The chromosome BLM is located in the chromosome 15q26.
Pattern of inheritance. Bloom syndrome is an autosomal recessive mutation, which means mutated DNA is passed down from the parent to the offspring in the production of the adult's gametes that undergo meiosis and with the sperm and egg cells. Each half of the parent's gametes complements the cells of the parents. Both parents will pass down their mutated genes to the child. Bloom syndrome also follows an autosomal recessive inheritance pattern. 2 copies of the mutation must be present for the child to influence their DNA. The BLM protein affected by Bloom syndrome would normally, quote, prevent excess sister chromatid exchanges and is also involved in other processes that help them maintain the stability of DNA, end quote. And to the right is the autosomal recessive inheritance pattern chart.
Symptoms of Bloom syndrome. Learning disabilities. Those with Bloom syndrome face major learning setbacks as well as other developmental problems. Diabetes and immune deficiencies. Many people with this syndrome have immune deficiencies, leaving them vulnerable to many ear infections, respiratory infections, and a predisposition to diabetes. Fertility problems. Men with Bloom syndrome can't produce sperm, and women have very reduced fertility as well as early menopause. Rashes. Clusters of blood vessels gather and appear on the skin and eyes in large rash shapes. Predisposed to cancer. Lack of the BLM gene means a lack in cell regulation, allowing for cancerous mutated cells to easily mutate more and get out of control. Sensitivity to sun. The lack of BLM gene means a lack in the cell's ability to repair itself, so it is overly sensitive to the effects of the sun, and those with Bloom syndrome are extremely sensitive to sunlight. These are the most extreme and harmful symptoms of Bloom syndrome.
So, is there a way to cure Bloom syndrome? Well, sadly, there's no cure because it's a genetic disorder. But there are some ways to prevent the harsh symptoms that come with this disorder. To prevent the risk of cancer, you can make sure to use sun protection when going out in the sun, and to stay away from growth hormones, and to get regularly examined for cancerous cells with your doctor, just to ensure that you're healthy and safe. But sadly, the life expectancy of someone with Bloom syndrome is only 27 to 50 years old. So this is a table showing some of the sequence changes that can happen in someone that has Bloom syndrome or is carrying the gene that is mutated. And as you can see, the top 2 changes are non-pathogenic, and the non-pathogenic genes are not necessarily disease-causing, and the bottom 3 are pathogenic, but the pathogenic genes are. And you can see that in the effect, because the effects in the pathogenic genes end up changing and are very, very harmful to the cell and could eventually end up with someone that has Bloom syndrome. Thank you for tuning in to learn more about Bloom syndrome, and hopefully you learned something new today.